Hello, I'm Marian O'Rourke Kaplan. We're going to continue on our Bustier project, and now we're ready to do the construction of the final garment. We've cut out self fabric for the exterior shell, the facings at the neck and at the hem, and we've used lining for the interior. We have our muslin support bodice that we've been using in the draping process. Now we need to connect it all together, put a zipper in it, and we're done. So the first thing you want to do is create units. So you take your boned support bodice and you lay it with the boning towards yourself, and you put it towards the inside of your external unit. You want to sew it together at the neckline edge all the way across, matching up your notches so that you now have what we'll call the shell unit. Okay? You also stitch it down center back, and you can see that here on my finished one where I've joined the support bodice with the shell unit at center back, just a hair in, like one needle width in from the actual center back. You don't want to, that seam allowance, the sew line is never going to come out, and you don't want it to be visible on your external garment. So it's just hair, just a hair in, but it needs to be secured at center back. So those two together are forming our shell unit. The next group that you'll take is your lining pieces, your fused facings, hem and neck, and you're going to join your lining pieces together and then join your facing pieces together on the vertical seams, and then on the horizontal join them so that you have what's called the lining unit. Now what you might notice here is I've got some white rigid material sticking out here in the side seams, and that is a back stay that we've developed and is used very frequently in bridal, and it's to give additional support in holding the garment on the person. So I'm going to show you how to develop this back stay, and in the process of creating your finished garment. So you're going to need 1.5 inch elastic. You're going to need a soft bra back extender that's available at any fabric store. And I used 3/4 inch twill tape just to stabilize it a little better. You take your bra extender and you'll notice that it's one piece. It has hooks on one end, and then it has the eyes across the back. So you're going to have to separate this out so that you have a hook extension and you have an eye extension. So you do that simply by cutting right here where your second row of eyes are. Show this here. I cut right where those eyes are. And then you're going to, with your ripper, you're going to go in here and separate this and remove these eyes. When you finish doing that work, you're going to have these two pieces. This one is going to have the eyes, and you can see that I can put my elastic in here because this is open and there's no hooks there. No eyes there, I'm sorry. I removed those eyes, so it's a nice smooth piece of fabric. And then this one has two, so that there is some ability to adjust it according to the model. Make it tighter or make it looser. But this has also got a nice opening. Okay, so to continue on your development, you want to cut your elastics. Before you go to the sewing machine, you need to cut elastics that are going to be the right size to fit into this. You want the strap to hit right at the waist, so we have a 1/2 inch seam allowance on this. This is the support pattern, back support bodice pattern. And so I'm going to straighten this out first. Okay. I want to establish my waistline one, and you cut it to the angle of your pattern. It's like that. That one's going straight, and this one is going to go at a slight angle so that there should be about an inch separation here. You know, 3/4 to an inch is adequate. Okay. The only thing I want to do here is straighten this out. It's a little crooked. So when I put these together and sew them to this back, then they would fit to the side seam. But it's elastic and I want it to have to stretch. So I'm going to make it actually smaller by trimming it 3/4 of an inch on each piece. That way, when it's in the garment and on the figure, it has to stretch to fit her body, and it will snug the whole support bodice into the rib cage. So once you've established the size of this, you need to cut a second pair. Be sure and blunt the end that goes into the hook unit, and then you'll have a slight shaping on the other. So I now have a pair, and these two are going to go with my hooks. If I have a pin, I want to keep them together so that I don't get them mixed up or turned upside down or anything like that. This is really tight elastic. Okay, and then this one is going to go with this one. So now we're ready to go to the sewing machine to finish this part of the construction. Now we're ready to sew our back strap. You take your bra pieces and open up the area where the fabric is that you're going to be able to insert your elastic. And I recommend that you do both pieces at the same time, so that you know that you've set them up in the proper orientation. So take each one, and remember the shortest elastic is going to go at the bottom, which will be the waist, and make sure that the angle is going up because the rib cage gets larger. Insert them so that they're at the edge, top and bottom. There will be a little bit of crossover in the center. That's fine, but be sure they're inserted well into the space, and make sure that you've got that 3/4 to an inch spacing here, which shouldn't be a problem because we cut them on the pattern accordingly. So go ahead and set up your other side at the same time, and know that the hook has to be facing down and the eyes facing up, so that you don't get a left and a two lefts or two rights instead of a left and a right. Okay, so get those set up and tucked in, and then you're ready to sew. You're going to simply sew across this edge of fabric and catch your elastic one time, turn it around, and about 1/4 of an inch over, stitch it again. I do want to make a note that in these videos I'm using contrasting thread, not because I think that's a good practice, but because in the video it will show you what I'm doing much better. So I've simply done a U-turn, and I've caught the elastic into the tab. So I want to do that on the other side as well. Again, have it at the outer edges with a little bit of overlap in the center. Make sure you've got the 1 3/4 inches and sew. Turn it around and sew your second line. And then the last step to finish this piece is to cover this and make it a little cleaner and a little more secure. You want to cut the piece of twill tape. We talked about 3/4 inch twill tape. And we're going to cover up our original stitching, wrap it around, turn it under so there's no raw edge. You can put a pin in there to hold that. And then you'll see on the final one, I stitched it with a zigzag, which is wonderful. If you have access to a zigzag, use a zigzag for this process. But stitch it on both sides of the twill tape, both edges. So it gives you a very secure, neatly finished bra strap that will look like this in the final garment. So no raw edges, nicely turned out with the twill tape. You'll take those 2 units and you're going to catch them in your side seam of your lining. You want to put it a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch above the waistline and set it in. When you sew that seam, I simply sandwiched it in between the 2 lining pieces at the side seam. You want to be sure that you're face up and you can visualize how the body would be in between those straps and the lining of the front. So lay them there on your front and then put your back lining piece on top and sew up this side seam, catching the elastic in between. It's called swallowing. So you'll swallow off these straps into your side seams, and your final lining unit will look like this with the back straps attached.